Morning. Hey guys. We're wrapping things up here. I mean, there's really only about 4 weeks left of school plus finals. Crazy. Um, so I'm setting up here our last little hurdle for the year, basically, and how we're going to end up this American literature focus. First, brief announcement about opting in for grades. Again, thank you for those who filled out the survey. Pretty much, you guys all had a pretty good level of what you wanted to do for us the year. Great. The district is going to send out an official document in about the week of May 25th, which kind of says that you sign it, your parents sign it, about like, yes, I'm opting out for grades, or yes, I'm opting in for grades. So just be looking on for that in the next few weeks. Before that, we are talking about technoculture for the rest of the year. Now, technoculture, a few of you saw some on the original document for postmodernism, and based on like timeline-wise, I wasn't sure how to end the year. There's a few different ways I could have gone. I wanted to go Vietnam, I wanted to go technoculture, I wanted to go medical realism, and basically I flipped a coin. And here. So what is technoculture? Today we're going to talk about what is technoculture, why is it important. You'll get your first text. I'll kind of lay out the next few texts. So yeah, timeline-wise, we're looking at this. I'm going to do the setup for technoculture right now. Talk, post, you'll get your first reading. Oh, it'll be great. Second, on Friday, or Thursday or Friday, depending on what you have me. Thursday or Friday, you'll get the next text, the Neuromancer. You'll get that on Friday. So you read Neuromancer for the weekend. We will have a meeting next week on Tuesday/Wednesday, whatever day you have me, to kind of talk about the two first texts, and then set up the last few texts, and then that'll kind of be it. So yeah, pretty straightforward for the next couple of weeks here. So let's get down to it. What is technoculture? Technoculture is, in blandest terms, the linking of technology and culture. Technoculture. See how that worked out? Really, really easy. But why is this a postmodern theory? Postmodernists who are all about play, and they're all about subverting expectations, taking an idea and twisting it and looking at it and questioning it. They have a really interesting time with technology. For much of history, technology was praised. If technology showed up in a text for the first, 300, 400 years of European history, it was a good thing. It was to be praised. It was to be highlighted. It was to be brought up and put on a pedestal. If you look at Jonathan Swift, British writer, he writes Gulliver's Travels. One of the islands that Gulliver goes to is a technologically advanced society, and I think it's Brobdingnag. It's not the Yahoo. Anyway, doesn't matter. But when Gulliver goes there, he just basically spends like, wow, this is amazing, and this is a possibility. Oh my goodness! And he spends pages and pages about praising the positivity of technology. Even in the early 1900s, where you have the stories coming out in the 1920s and 30s about technology, and where will America be in the year 2000 with flying cars and jetpacks, and father will go to the major bookstore downtown via his trolley driven by robot horses. And it was all this idea that technology was only going to be helpful. And then postmodern was like, is it? Most famously with Isaac Asimov, who is one of the most famous modern science fiction writers. He pens the 3 rules of robotics in the 1950s in one of his science fiction short stories. And it was basically, the idea of the 3 rules of robots are, I had it, where to go. Here we go. The first law of robotics: a robot may not injure a human being through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Second law: a robot may obey the orders given to it by a human, except when the orders conflict with the first law. And third law: A robot must protect its own existence as long as it does not conflict with the first two. Basically, it's about robots are here to serve humans, unless the human is going to use the robot to hurt others. And this is, we really like, oh, that's nice. It really is one of the most impactful things regarding science fiction in the last 100 years. But when you really think about it, like those laws are written because Isaac Asimov understood that robots could be used for evil. They could be used to harm, do bad things, not just like good things. It wasn't just Henry Ford making an automated assembly line. Here's the Ford company, like replacing workers with robots to build cars. That was being hailed as a technological marvel by the time that was happening. But Asimov understands that maybe, like, if we built a robot with enough sentience to actually act, it would be used predominantly for evil. So he constructs the 3 rules of robotics as a kind of hopeful failsafe for how AI would be treated in the future. Nice thought. But even Asimov himself was called in, like, when he asked about, like, why did you make these 3 laws, he has this really great quote where when he's talking about the 3 laws, he says, ideally, the 3 laws work because they are based on human nature. A human would never hurt someone else. A human would act in their own self-preservation, except to help other people. But then he goes, my answer is, quote, yes, the 3 laws are always in a way that rational human beings can deal with robots or anything else. But when I say that, I remember, sadly, that human beings are not always rational. So, like, why did he call it the 3 rules of robotics as opposed to 3 rules of humans? Is because humans wouldn't act this way. And that upsetting nature about humans and their relationship with technology is where a lot of science fiction is based off of in the 1950s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s and present. And this whole thing of technoculture is why it becomes important. And the texts we're going to read are all about this big question of, is technology really that good for us? Is it worth being praised? Is it worth being highlighted and brought up and put up on a pedestal? Because a lot of these authors are like, potentially. But there's a lot of bleakness to it as well. There is a lot of downside. So, a couple of texts we're going to be reading. First, you will be reading an excerpt from a story called, wait for the real title, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That's the full title of this novel by Philip K. Dick. You may know it by another title though, because the novel was made into a movie. And they realized that putting Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep up on a billboard would be really convoluted and hard to read. So they shortened it down to a title, Blade Runner. So you're going to be reading the first 2 chapters of the book Blade Runner, basically. And it's great. So if you've seen Blade Runner, you're gonna meet Deckard. You're gonna hear about androids. You're gonna hear about what he does for a living. And if you've seen it, you're like, oh yeah, I already got this. But it is a little different, just a little different because again, this is the novel. From there, but basically, I'll get into that more later on. From there, we're going to go on to read. From there, we're going to go read an excerpt by William Gibson from his book Neuromancer. Arguably one of the first, not arguably, it is one of the first cyberpunk stories to come out in the 20th century. And the story basically is in a world where everyone lives online. They kind of hack in via these VR goggles. They live in this online world. What happens if you get kicked out of that? And boy, I have no idea how that impacts society today. What happens if you live in an online world? That's a weird thing to think about. Oh wait, it's our entire existence. Truthfully, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll bring in some Bradbury. I know some of you have read Bradbury before. I think you read Fahrenheit 451 as freshmen, but we're going to read something different by Bradbury. One of his shorter stories from Martian Chronicles about the troubles of space travel. And when we get to that text, some of you go, Oh, I know why we're reading this. Because Blevin is a sneaky devil. And then fourth text is blank on me right now. I'll look up it later. But yeah, so it's kind of a little mini unit here to end the year on how people relate to technology and is it good for us and all that stuff. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I'm excited about it. I know that I have the benefit of I get to talk to a screen for basically 20 minutes and nerd out about science fiction. Hopefully you enjoy it too. I think these texts are interesting. Neuromancer is, I read it for the first time last year, and it's arguably one of my favorite texts I've ever read. It's fantastic. Do Android Dream of a Sheep is a fantastic book that I'll talk about more in a second. Well, we'll talk about it right now. Everything here is great. I love it. So the first text, stuff you got to know about before you read it, and then we'll talk about this. We'll talk about it next week. Do Android Dream of Electric Sheep? Basically, this book takes place, because again, a good barometer of Technoculture books is they drop you into the world just hard and fast. Like, in this book, you wake up and they're talking about dialing, and it's weird. To kind of contextualize a little bit, in the world of Blade Runner, that's what I'll call it for summary's sake, emotions are dialed in, where basically you feel things by plugging in a number that you are hooked up to, and it sends electric waves to your brain to make you feel things. So you see here in the excerpt that you're going to read, Deckard's wife, Iran, or is that Iran? One of those two. Basically wakes up in the morning and she's like groggy because her alarm went off, and she's like, I don't care about anything. I'm tired, I'm grumpy, and I don't want to do anything. And Deckard goes, oh no, I'll dial you in to make you feel something. And she goes, oh, dial 3 to make you feel remorse. And she was like, I don't want to dial 3 because I don't want to feel remorse. I just don't want to feel anything. So this world is, your emotions are controlled by machines. Now you are the one who plugs the number in, but you gotta start arguing, is this a good system? Deckard thinks it is a good system, but as you read through, you go, but the reader goes, is it a good system? And also to clarify here what Deckard's job is. Deckard's job is he works for the police department as essentially a bounty hunter. When an android breaks one of the 3 rules of robotics, the one that I talked about, that a robot may not injure a human being or allow a human being to come to harm. When an android or robot breaks one of those laws, Deckard goes and gets them and brings them to justice. And in the book, there's a real conceit about, like, even his wife Iran says it's wrong that you do that. Those poor androids, because again, it's a thing of they're not real. They don't feel anything, so it's not wrong to hunt them down and kill them because they're not real human beings. But if you read through more of the book, it's kind of hinted in the first chapter. So there's this mentality in the story that the androids are showing emotion, but does that make them human? It might. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. On the subject matter, Philip K. Dick himself said this: our environment, and I mean the man-made world of machines, artificial constructs, computers, electronic systems, interlinking homeostatic components, all of this is in fact the beginning, more and more to possess what the earnest psychologist fear the primitive sees in his environment: animation. In the very real sense, our environment is becoming alive, or at least quasi-alive, and in the ways specifically and fundamentally analogous to ourselves. Rather than learning about ourselves by studying our constructs, perhaps we should make the attempt to comprehend what our constructs are up to by looking what we ourselves are up to. So a big theme in this book is really what quantifies living. What makes something alive? Is it, and can you even question your humanness? So something to think about as you read through this text about, how the humans act, how do the androids act, and stuff like that. Enjoy reading it. Well, so again, you're gonna read through the first couple chapters, or there's 2 excerpts I'm giving you, truthfully. Read through the couple chapters that I'm gonna give you from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And then that's due on Friday. You'll see something like some questions that are due on Friday. On Friday, I'm gonna post an example or an excerpt from Neuromancer. That's due on Monday with the questions that are assigned to it. But on Friday, I'm not going to talk about Neuromancer. On Friday, or Thursday, Friday, so I don't know why I'm B-Day preferable. I don't know. On Thursday and Friday, you're going to see me post an explanation of your final. There is no set final, as I've talked about in the past, essay kind of thing. It's a final project that will be due the week of finals, that first week of June. So look for that video on Friday, and then basically next Monday, I'll take questions about the finals online, and then we'll go from there. So enjoy your first dipping your foot into the waters of technoculture literature, cyberpunk, science fiction. It's all great. I love it all. But we'll talk more later on. So yeah, let's talk to you later.